Morning campers, coffee time. Hope you're doing well. Yes, so I do try to keep my videos as positive as possible because it's important to stay positive in the middle of everything we're all going through. And it is easy to get bogged down with negative stuff. I mean, somebody just sent me a WhatsApp screenshot of a newspaper article saying that two young babies had died after receiving 7 vaccines each, and that the police were interrogating the parents. And it's that kind of thing that makes you go, oh. And somebody else in the group said, when is this going to end? And I know it can be extremely tough when you're getting all that external information coming in, but in the middle of it all, we have to navigate it. We have to navigate it as positively as we can, because we have to keep remembering, and it's not always easy, that it is a spiritual war that we're in. And you know, if you're one of the enlightened ones, as in somebody who questions stuff basically and doesn't just take everything on face value, it's an extremely tough ride in that respect. And even though I try to keep everything on here as positive as I can, my own personal experiences throughout, since COVID basically, have been amazing on one hand, but extremely tough on the other. And I think I deserve the right to a private life, right? As we all do. But you know, there are things that go on in your own personal life that are challenging. I don't talk about my own stuff that often. But you know, I've got a situation at the moment where somebody I love very dearly is in a lot of pain and has been through hell, really. And it's, you know, I'm very fortunate in terms of doing my podcast. I've met some incredible healers and people who know more than me about stuff. So I do call those people in sometimes and ask them if they could assist with issues with people that I love and that I want to help, because although I've gathered a lot of knowledge and that we've applied in our healing centre, for example, sorry, as a fly, you know, it's still a personal challenge to help people that you love, especially if they're not as awake as you. And in this particular situation, this person goes back to the doctor, basically, has the news on the TV and goes back to the bloody doctor, and she has high blood pressure, she has pain in her hip. And I was speaking to the guy that I mentioned yesterday, whose book was taken off of Amazon. The book is called Breast Cancer is a Misdiagnosis. It's a part of a series of books, which started with a book called Terminal Cancer is a Misdiagnosis. The author's name is Danny Carroll. He's been on my show recently. I've met him a few times. We've got lots of copies of this book at our healing centre in the west of Ireland, live5dhealth.com. If you've not heard of it, you can go and get those books, that book from there if you're in that area. But his book got taken down off Amazon yesterday, and you know, and I did a little video about the fact that UK has gone full totalitarian, etc. Most of us already know this, right? Anyway, I asked him for a bit of help, and he said, well, you know, firstly we have to switch off the pain and the hip issue. And if any of you have had a hip issue, it is interesting, because I had one a couple of years ago, and it was agony. It was like being on a torture rack, and it was my right hip, and it just came out of nowhere. And he said to me this morning, Danny said, that is actually an inability to go forward and cope with something in life, cope with a circumstance. And when you clear it, it's you move forward. And anyway, so I've tried to pass on this information, and trying to get her to switch the pain off, because Danny's work is based on German new medicine, which is phenomenal stuff, because it basically it teaches you to talk to your subconscious and to switch pain off. And in Danny's case, he switched off cancer a couple of times, I believe, and hence why he wrote the book, and hence why Amazon took it down. Because, this is part of the struggle going forward, that trying to teach people this stuff, it's ancient knowledge, it's hidden knowledge, and there's a massive industry behind people being ill, as we all should know by now. So if any of you are suffering or struggling with relatives or friends or loved ones that are not on the same page as you and are not open-minded enough to stop, I call it clinging to the side of the swimming pool. It's basically going back to the program, because the program is comforting. I was having this discussion about, people who sit down and watch the news on TV. It's comforting to them because it's what they know. And even though they might be awake in many, many other ways, then they still go back to this program. And it's not always easy. I was a very timid swimmer as a child, because I think my mother had read a book on how to bring up kids. This is in the 60s, 70s. It's one of those it's probably another program from the Cabal, but she'd read that dunking the kid in the pool was a good idea to teach them how to swim, and what it actually did to me was make me terrified of water. So it took me a long time to learn how to swim, and I just remember it was a Borstal actually in a place called Duston in Northamptonshire, where we learned to swim, and we'd go there in a coach once a month or something and swim in this bloody awful pool. But the analogy is sound, because I was desperate to get out of the one of those inflatable things on your arms. Desperate to get out. It was embarrassing. Everybody else could swim and I couldn't. And it was because I had this PTSD from being dunked in the water. And funnily enough, my brother, who was basically born blind, was an amazing swimmer, held national records for, he could do the butterfly at the length of a pool in like 3 strokes. It was, I'm very proud of him. It was amazing how he could swim, because he couldn't see it. He didn't have the fear of the water. I did. But it was a program that I learned to undo and push through. And that's what we all have to do. If we find ourselves talking in terms of, we've got to get an economical car. Why have you got to get an economical car? This is an abundant world, an abundant universe. If you start thinking in terms of economy, you're in the program. I was having this conversation with my daughter the other day. She's learning that working for a living isn't that clever, because she's getting taxed. And then she's like, well, I've worked all these hours, and then the government are keeping all this money. I'm like, yeah, there's your lesson. And she's like, why? And I'm like, because they've got you in the system. They've got you clinging to the side of the swimming pool, and you need to break free of that. And a lot of you watching this are people in your community, in your family. You're the black sheep. You're the one that has always been called crazy. You're the one that, I think in one of my poems I put, you're dancing with fairies and angels, and other people don't get that. You feel things, right? Most people don't feel things. Most people are just like robots, literally like robots. So the program, that's why it's a program. What do you do with robots or hardware? You program it. And some of us are resistant to that program, and it's very frustrating, especially when people die because of their programming. And that is the thing that makes all of this tough. But from a spiritual point of view, it's hard to watch it, but it's also about acceptance. Because the other thing that's happened to me this week on the same subject, from a spiritual reading that I had, which was telling me, look, sometimes you just gotta let things go. And I have talked about this on my podcast before, about When I was suicidal, I got told to let everything go. When I was basically saved, letting go is the tough one. It is the tough one. But if you remember that you're an eternal spirit, and if you're watching this, you probably are on a mission to help humanity. So stick with it. Stick with it, because it is going to come good. But we do have to let things go. Yeah. Have a wonderful day and keep manifesting the amazing future that we've got ahead of us.